Hello, my name is Isaiah Taylor, and this is my journal reflection that I've written on my journal entries over the course of the semester. Reflection. In this journal, I wrote down my experiences and different things I thought about during the journal writing session. These things include writing about optimism and how that can get me through rough moments, especially in school, and how to deal with time management and procrastination. Over time, I found myself writing about different topics as I didn't want to stay on one specific topic the entire time. I would write down whatever was on my mind at the time, even if it wasn't much. Since there was only 10 minutes to write every session, there wasn't much structure to my writing. There was punctuation and everything set up in paragraphs, but there wasn't any structure to the actual writing process. So, like, I would just kind of sit down, you have 10 minutes or whatever to spare at the beginning of class, and I would just kind of, whatever I had on my mind at the time, I would just go ahead and write down. But there would be no, like, actual structure to what I was writing. So, like, I wouldn't think about what I was writing before I would write it. I would just kind of like, okay, I'll just start writing something down, and maybe it'll turn into an idea later. Over time, I did notice a change in how I approached the topics I wrote about. At first, it came from a place of just writing for the sake of writing. Later, I took a more personal approach and started connecting with what I was writing. Me having a connection with what I was writing led me to caring more about how my writing was formatted, and I put a little bit more effort in the passage. So at first, it was kind of like I was just writing because we had to. It was a 10-minute session, so I was like, I'm gonna just figure something out and just write it down. And then over time, like I started adding on to what I was writing, and it became more of a not necessarily like it became more of a personal thing, but I felt more connected to the topic at hand that I was writing about. In the end, it did get harder to write for 10 minutes as I was simply just running out of ideas. I think since there's nothing too significant going on all the time in my day to day, it can be difficult to find something to write about in 10 minutes. It's harder than it may seem to come up with something on the spot. Um, yeah, so like at first it was like, okay, I'm gonna just write about something maybe in the past that I experienced, or maybe just a cool idea that I had. And then the more we wrote every day, every session for 10 minutes, it just became harder and harder to figure out something to write about, since it was just, again, we are just run out of ideas, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like it's hard to just come up with something on the spot like that, especially after doing it for a while. Every journal entry was written on paper, even though I prefer to type. Writing on paper is fine, but I feel like I'm able to be more consistent with what I'm writing when it's typed. I also tend to get my entries done faster when it's typed, since it's easy to correct my mistakes. So it's like, of course, when we all start writing, we write on paper or whatever, but then we moved to keyboard, and then once we started learning how to use the keyboard, it was like, okay, now we don't have to worry about an eraser on a pencil. We can just press backspace when we make a mistake. It's the same thing with me, and also too, I feel like I can flow better when I'm typing because you jot down words faster. And for me, I didn't learn cursive in grade school. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, since they just stopped teaching cursive since we saw started moving digitally in terms of like how we write down passages and stuff. So yeah, typing is kind of my bread and butter when it comes to, writing stuff down. Just look at the essays and stuff. We don't write them on paper. We write them on Microsoft Word. So it just makes sense of why, I prefer to type than write, on paper. Sometimes I did enjoy writing in my journal every session because it was 10 minutes to potentially brainstorm ideas for my next essay. Other times I didn't enjoy it so much because it felt like I had to force myself to write about something on a whim, even though I really had nothing to write about. So I would just kind of sit there and just like blankly stare at my paper. It's just like, what do I write about? You know what I'm saying? I'm nothing interesting. Nothing happened yesterday. Nothing happened the day before. Nothing happened last week that's like significant. So I guess I just kind of add on to what I've already written down before. But it's hard to come up with something new when sometimes your days are just kind of boring. So yeah, those are my thoughts and overall thoughts and opinions on the 10-minute journal sessions that we had every class. Thank you.